I'm Eric Lipsy, and this is Galt University. Today, I'm here with Christina of Kick-Ass Home Inspections. How are you doing today, Christina?
I'm good, Eric. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, thank you very much for agreeing to come on. Today, we wanted to talk about customer service. I know that is something that I've complained about and I've heard other people complaining about a lot. So I was hoping today you can help provide some clarity to help people with their customer service efforts along the way. So maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about your customer service background.
Yeah. The last couple years have definitely taken an interesting turn as far as customer service, but it's always super important. Um, so I'm going to go all the way back to when I was 15 and a half and started my very first job at a Quiznos. I was a super shy kid, but there I just loved talking to people. And so it really helped me become more like outgoing and I learned a lot about people in that quick service setting. And from there, I started work at a Toyota dealership as a customer service assistant, where I was talking to people who purchased cars, who went through service,
Mhm.
and that was service and sales and calling customers that had come through. And you hear a lot of yelling in the car industry. And I think that really helped me learn how to diffuse a lot of situations.
Mm,
After that, I got into a management position as customer service manager at a different Toyota dealership. And that took on a different role. It was creating training for salespeople. And then from there, I got into, I was the client experience director with a Land Rover dealership. And that was a completely different experience too,
yeah.
because you're dealing with a different type of person, someone who has a lot of money.
Right.
And so their experience and their expectation is a lot different than anything else. So I created a whole training series there for service advisors, for service techs, because for whatever reason, Land Rover clients wanted to talk to service techs as well. And receptionists, I was in charge of the receptionist there. So overall, I've created a lot of customer service training and been in a lot of customer service. My last big corporate world that I worked in, I went back to Quiznos in the corporate world as a training and development manager. And there I was actually creating training material for customer service and owning your own business. So today we own two businesses. Kick-Ass Home Inspections is one of them, and we create a pretty distinct customer experience. And that's by design and through a lot of the things that I've learned over the last, I don't know, 15 years or 16 years of working. And it's really helped us.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the things you're seeing today that are you would say are the biggest problems with customer service?
So knowing what goes into training in customer service, it is a lack of training. I think it's a lack of training and it's a lack of giving power to the employee.
Hmm.
So when let's say you're at a restaurant and service is super slow right now because everybody is understaffed
Right.
and you go into a restaurant and you wait 30 minutes to be seated because there's only two sections open. And we go out to dinner for usually something, right? A birthday, a celebration, or
Hmm.
we don't feel like cooking. So we're usually in a good mood when we go out. And when you have to wait that long for your food to come out or for you to be sat, you start to get anxious and annoyed.
Hmm.
And servers aren't trained on how to handle that. They go and get a manager. So I think it's a lack of power giving power to the employee. So I like it as a manager to say like, you have, I don't know, $100 tonight to make your customers feel better. Like, don't come to me because I'm cooking in the kitchen tonight.
Right.
You each have $100. Give them desserts, give them chips and salsa, whatever that is.
Hmm.
And then you instantly can make somebody feel better about their experience. So, but training is also a big deal as well. If you're not teaching employees how to handle an upset customer, that's a problem too.
Hmm. Now, what would you say should possibly be the thought process when dealing with these customers? Because I know, I know there's a training piece, but maybe, well, we can get to that later. But I know there's a training piece, and maybe people just don't have the right mindset of dealing with customers. I know for me, I always try to think of the residual effect, right? Because you lose a customer due to poor customer service, then you lose that customer, could be for life. Like they may never come back to your business again. So not, you didn't just mess up that one time. It's the residual effects of them not coming back and possibly telling other people. I don't know. I just wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, so the thought process, there's a science kind of behind customer service, and it goes again back to empowering your employees. So, but if you don't have employees and you're just like you and me, we're just individual people in our business.
Right.
It's a diffusion of the situation. It's
Mhm,
not placing blame. So don't blame anybody. That's kind of the first thing.
mhm,
Don't blame the customer, like, oh, you didn't tell me that,
mm,
or you didn't tell me like that was what you were expecting. So
mhm,
you kind of have to set expectations ahead of time as well. So thought process is set expectations at the beginning of the experience,
mhm,
customer experience. So I like to walk our clients through what to expect from the moment we hang up the phone
mhm,
through the
mhm.
whole process of the
Yes.
inspection.
Mhm,
Here's who you're going to see. Here's when you get my email. Here's what we can do afterwards. Here's
mm,
what to expect in the coming month from me. So setting expectations. If
mhm,
someone calls you and says, I am totally disappointed with everything, then you say, you, I never say, I'm sorry.
mhm.
um, it actually, I'm sorry has a negative connotation to most people.
Mm,
I apologize is actually a better word phrasing. I
got it.
apologize that you're feeling this way.
Mhm,
How can we make it better? So it's really verbal. So that's another really important strategy. So picking your words carefully,
yes.
um, always taking a breath before you talk to somebody is really good. If you get an email response, um, absorb it, don't instantly respond back in those kind of situations. So strategy is really to diffuse the situation. And
Mhm,
there's a multitude of ways of doing that. Um, so thinking about your words, apologizing,
mhm,
and asking what you can do to make it better. And
mhm,
then if it's like they want a refund, then you have to decide what's important to you. And will that even make it better?
mhm.
Refunds don't always make it better, right? Have you
Right,
ever refunded somebody
right,
and you're like, well, that still didn't make it better?
right. Yeah, because I heard of someone recently, obviously not your company, but this guy I know, he had paid for an inspection to be done, and they missed something critical, and it ended up costing him like $20,000 to repair. So they issued him a refund of $1,100, but he still got a $20,000 problem. So it's kind of, yeah, so I can totally see where you're coming from with the $20,000. I mean, when just a refund is not, sometimes it's just not adequate to resolve
No,
an issue, but I don't know.
no,
Yeah.
he's still going to be mad that he had to spend
Right.
$20,000, and
Right.
he's not referring that company ever again. So the end
Right.
goal in that situation, right, is to how can I make it better
Uh-huh.
and still save this client to refer me, right?
Right.
And sometimes, you just have to walk away and say, well, that's it is what it is, and we messed up, and we won't get any business from that. You have to be comfortable with that too, I think.
Now, I do know that internally, well, larger corporations a lot of times have where they have training inside of their business
Mhm.
where people can, well, you're automatic go through it sometimes even before you even doing any type of work, you're going through their customer service training. Now, but for a smaller business, they may not necessarily be, have the resources to do it internally. And then again, the managers might not even be good at customer service themselves, because I have seen that. But I'm wondering, are there any resources, that independent resources out there where people can send their people for customer service training and or things like that? Do you know of anything like that?
There is a great YouTube video, and I can't remember who it's by, but it's called "Give Them the Pickle."
Mhm.
It's actually one of the best. Every customer service training I've ever gone through
Uh-huh.
shows that video. And it's about what I talked about in the very beginning, is like empowering your employees to give them the pickle. You know, if you don't, just give them the pickle. Like they want a pickle, don't charge them for it. Don't, fight about it. Don't
Mhm.
like give them the pickle. It's a really fantastic video that I would make
Yeah.
if we had employees, I'd make every single one watch it. But I think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of resources out there um, for people, like YouTube videos, or just doing some research on like what people are expecting, what customers are expecting. There's a lot of resources out there
Mhm.
to read. I don't know them specifically, but they're out there. It's gonna you have if you want to teach someone customer service, you have to do the research to do it. Now, are there people that do that? I'm sure there are. I like talking about customer service. I'll do it for anybody who's listening if you want.
Yeah.
It's so valuable. I've worked at restaurants, and they teach you early on. They give you like a set of videos to watch. Here's how you handle customers, or here's what we want you to say when a customer walks in the door, when you answer the
Right.
phone, right?
Mhm. Right.
But then they're not given any additional training. It's just
Mhm.
the onboarding. So you have to give training throughout every quarter, or every twice a year, or whatever it is, to make sure that your employees are understanding what you want from them to give to the customers.
It's great.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the word choice. As you mentioned earlier, you talked about as opposed to saying "I'm sorry," say "I apologize," that you feel this way or whatnot. Now, I imagine when you're writing to communicate with a customer who might be upset, it is it is so probably even more critical to get those words correct, because they don't see your body language, they
Mhm.
don't know the tone of voice, that sort of thing. So yeah, what do you
Yes. And that's why I said a little bit earlier, if you get an email from somebody and they're like mad, it's really good to take a like walk away from the computer.
Uh-huh.
Walk away from the computer, come back 20 minutes later, type an email, response back, don't send it, walk away and come back.
Yeah,
Um, I also think that using negative words like no or worry, like don't worry about that, or anything that uses negative terminology.
right.
Um,
Or make the person feel like they're an idiot for bringing it up, kind of
yes,
thing. Yeah.
yes. So it's always great to use positive language.
Hmm.
And you can find examples of that really anywhere. That's um, I know we did something not too long ago. I'm trying to think of the wording, but like no worries. That was one of the big ones, right? We all use that.
Right, right.
No worries. But that actually it's all negative. Both of those words are negative,
No
right?
one worries. Yeah.
No and worries. So you have to switch that up and say, I'd be happy to do that, or that's okay. We can work on something else a different way. But yeah, so you got to turn off, you have to stop using those negative terminologies in the communications.
I like what you said about walking away, because there was once, because I'm usually pretty good at this, and it wasn't dealing with the customer, it was dealing with someone who was really annoying. That, well, anyways, long story short, I told myself to calm down and breathe before I replied, and then I replied. But I think there was something subconscious in my brain still that was annoyed, and it still came out even though I was trying to be strategic with the wording. That frustration still came out in that email. So that's what I like when you said about the walking away, because it kind of really gives you a chance to think about your response and to calm down and deliver a response that's not going to basically throw wood on the fire.
Yep.
And I, like I said, it is something I'm usually really good with. But that time when I did that, and I went back and read what I wrote. I'm like, you know what? I totally see how I triggered that person
Yeah.
by not taking the time and walking away and then coming back to it later. So that is just a brilliant way to go about doing that.
Yeah, I mean, another thing to do too is to call a friend and say, hey, can you read this and make sure this doesn't sound too snarky? Or
Right. Yeah.
there's always, it's always good to have another set of eyes on it.
Absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
shifting gears to talk about people who are more face to face. Now, I know, like I said, you get that annoying thing, where people are annoying you. You don't have the opportunity to just walk away, right? And you don't have that, and then the initial shock may be on your face. So it's almost like you just have to be preconditioned to just keep a calm countenance and be able to calm that situation. I don't know your thoughts on that.
I try to look at clients as as friends, and they're not always. But if you're annoyed with a friend, instantly you like, right? Like you got to take a breath and be like,
Right.
okay, how can we get through this conflict? Like, and I personally like to listen to the person before I say anything because I think
Mhm,
just as humans in general, our knee jerk reaction is to react,
mhm,
and to fix, like, let me fix it, or let me just tell you what's wrong or how this works. So I'll just give you a great example actually. We ordered for a different business, for our construction business, our client ordered doors for their house and they were all wrong. We ordered like
uh,
22 doors, 15 of them came in wrong.
mm,
They replaced one of their bifold doors, and when you looked at they're matching, they had two sets. They came in different, like they had different looking panels on them.
wow.
One was square, and then the other were like round. Um, and they tried to blame us, and they
Mhm,
tried to blame the client. Oh, they ordered them incorrect. Well, I don't order them, you order them. And I'm happy to take the blame where blame is due. Like if I ordered something, then I'll pay for it.
right.
That's how we do things. They just wanted to fight with us about it. And eventually we got them to do it, but he wouldn't talk to me. Instead, we went to text messaging because he couldn't calm himself down enough to do it. So I think like that goes back to like being able to say, what am I willing to do to save this client? And am I willing to work with them again? Right. So we can get mad at each other, but I think it's always best to take a deep breath and say, how would I deal with this if this was a friend of mine?
Mhm,
So we're not getting mad at each other and we can come to some kind of resolution. And again, I like to listen to the person, to bring it back, listen to the person, what they're saying, because sometimes they're not even mad about the problem, right?
yeah.
I jumped around a little bit because um I he didn't listen to what the problem was. He just instantly wanted to say, well, we didn't order it incorrectly. Um, and instead of listening to what happened or what we wanted, he just instantly wanted to blame me. And so that goes to the like reaction. So just take a
Mhm,
deep breath, think about what they're actually saying, and then usually you both get calm enough
mhm.
to figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, I like what you said there. It kind of reminds me of the advice my older brother gave me when I was getting ready to get married. And he said, let the problem be the problem. And I was like, what do you mean by that? He's like, well, a lot of times when you're and your spouse are having a disagreement about something, you start to point the finger at each other and start to attack each other. It's like, but you can both attack the problem, but if you start attacking each other, then you got a bigger problem, right?
Yeah,
So
totally.
that made me think of that when you were talking about your guy who was basically jumping to blaming someone as opposed to focusing on problem resolution. The problem is that the doors don't work. So that should have been the focus is, okay, how do we fix this problem as opposed to trying to make the other person the problem. And I know sometimes the other person is a problem,
Totally.
but a lot of times the problem is something outside of the person. And if the focus is placed there, I imagine you have a much better chance of getting the problem resolved, like you said, as opposed to attacking someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have the opportunity to save the client, right? So
Mm,
if you
absolutely.
manage to fix the issue without pointing fingers, then you can save the client.
Mhm. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to something you mentioned with the scripts. And I think those are really important. I know when I was in leadership training in the military, we had these scripts and we go through this role playing and everything. It's like, how do you handle this situation? And some of the guys are really just come after you, and there's some things that just catch you so off guard, but you had to be able to respond, in order to pass the leadership school that we were in. But I really valued a lot that training because it put you in situations so that were real world. And if they actually came up, you felt better prepared to doing that. So I think to your point, I just wanted to reiterate that a little bit more for someone who may be watching is having those scripts. Because even if you are a small business, writing a script to show this is how we deal with this
Yep.
is probably something just crucial. Even if you can't send someone to a training program, having that knowledge and preparation to deal with that, yeah, seemed like it'd just be huge.
Yeah, and then they can always reference them. You can review them with clients or
Mhm,
with your employees. You can review them yourself as a small business owner. You can say, okay, how do I want to talk to all these people? What have I learned in the last 6 months? Where can I change my interactions with
mhm,
each individual client, or the touch points of each client? Like, what have I learned? How can I change? How can I make those scripts better?
mhm. Yeah, no, I totally see that because the things are gonna change. You're gonna have more experiences as you go on of like, oh, I've never had to deal with this before. This will be good to add to the training manual. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like a living document, I guess you would say. You're adding to it as you go along. And it's time consuming because initially people look at it, this doesn't increase my bottom line, but it actually absolutely does.
Yeah.
And over time, it's just more critical because of how much business is lost and can be lost through poor customer service.
100%. Yeah, there's a restaurant we won't ever go back to, even if,
Yeah.
or stores I won't walk into because of
Mhm.
experience. And we all have that. Um, but yeah, what's your bottom line for sure? And customer service expectations change. We've noticed that in the last year.
Mhm.
Um, Even over the last 5 years, and in
Yeah.
our other business, we've noticed what people are expecting
Mhm.
to be changing. So yeah, it's definitely a living, breathing customer service is living and breathing all the time.
Yeah, because I've noticed myself too a lot this past couple years, and you can tell because some of even these bigger companies seem like they weren't putting people through the proper customer service training because their responses were just like, you know what, I don't care. I'm unhappy. Maybe they just didn't like their jobs because their wages weren't good enough. But whatever it was just you could feel the tension, and maybe some of them were overworked because other people weren't there to pick up the slack or whatnot. But whatever it was, you could really feel the difference. And I would every time someone presented good customer service, I was like, wow, I'm really pleased. I've made sure that I acknowledged it because it became such a rare thing that when you received it, it was just kind of like, oh wow, a breath of fresh air. Yeah.
We actually did that. We went to a restaurant here in town, and you can just tell that the servers are overworked and everybody's understaffed, and my food came out cold. And working in restaurants for a long time, I knew like, I didn't want anybody to get mad. And I just let the server know, like, hey, my food came out cold. And he,
Yeah.
he was so nice, and he
Mhm.
took it back immediately, brought it back. And I asked for the manager at the end of the dinner, and she came over, and I knew that she was like, I don't want to deal with this today. And I told her that our server, He did, he went up, I mean, he was so, I told her like he was so nice and he took care of it right away. And I just told her that we appreciated it and it was
Yeah.
no big deal. And she started crying because I think that also as customers,
Hmm.
we're conditioned to expect so much and
Hmm.
everything so quickly.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was happy to let her know that even though my food came out cold and we waited for a while, we were still coming back because our server was so great.
Yes. Yeah, and that has residual effects also. Just that compliment of telling someone, it just could have made their day when you're just feeling so overwhelmed and you're doing the best you can to maintain.
Yeah.
Just hearing something like that is, yeah, it's really good. I know that's not along with the customer service. That's the opposite side, but still
But
true.
as customers ourselves too, we have to pay
Right.
attention to what people are going through and
Yes,
set our expectations to go into that.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to share as far as the customer service is concerned today?
I just, it's really important to train your employees and train yourself.
Mhm.
And if anybody needs help with that, I'm happy to help someone get some guidelines for their business for themselves. But it's really important to look at a number of times throughout the year to just
Right.
check yourself.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
think that's great. Now, is there any way if someone wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, they can email me at info@kick-c-homeinspections.com. And I'm happy to take emails there.
All right. Sounds
Yeah,
great. Well, thank you again, Christina. I really appreciate your time. And I know someone is going to take something from this that's really going to help them to better their business. Thank you
good.
very much.
I'm happy to talk about it. Thank you.
Until next time.